As the generation that grew up with them connect and speak out, it's become significantly less common. But for 20 years, the Star Wars prequel trilogy has received endless and vile hate from fans. For a long time, the films were considered the worst Star Wars had to offer, that George Lucas screwed up completely when making them. In case you don't know, George Lucas wrote and directed the first Star Wars film, now called A New Hope. However, he didn't direct The Empire Strikes Back or Return of the Jedi. He did write and direct all 3 prequel movies though. This is what tarnished a lot of his filmmaking legacy to so many people. The prequels actually bring a ton to the world and story of Star Wars that I think isn't realized, or at least isn't discussed enough. So that's what I'm going to do with this video. Bring light to why I think the prequels improve the overall episodic story of Star Wars. Let me preface quickly with this. In this video, I'm not trying to convince you that the prequels are good movies. That is irrelevant to the topic of what they bring to the saga. I am simply explaining why their mere existence makes Star Wars a better franchise and why I am more than happy to accept them as canonical. Unlike a certain other trilogy that I will not be discussing for now. Additionally, I don't even think episodes 1 and 2 are good movies. Production-wise, they're pretty solid, but I share many of the same grievances that haters of The Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones have. Episode 3 I really enjoy, however. I think Revenge of the Sith is one of the best Star Wars movies, in fact. Now that you are aware that even I don't like much about the prequels, let me make my case about why I still think they're valuable regardless. The original trilogy, now episodes 4, 5, and 6, stands perfect on its own. If no other Star Wars movies existed, those 3 films would make up a complete and concise story all by themselves. What George Lucas was doing with the prequels was telling a whole other story. Yes, they connect to the originals. Yes, by the end of the prequels, everyone is set in their places for episode 4. And yes, the prequels work better when being a part of a 6-episode saga rather than a standalone trilogy. However, the prequels, with their many references to the originals, are great stories on their own. Lucas told a different story on different worlds with different people to show us the origins of the classic films. Of course, there are a few people and places that will return, and some play the most significant roles, but it all makes sense within the established universe. The most obvious example belonging to Palpatine. We are introduced to the Emperor in episode 5 in one brief scene. We don't see him again until episode 6, where he plays a major role. Never do we learn where he came from or how he rose to power. Frankly, it isn't necessary for the story to be told. Regardless, wouldn't it be interesting to know such information? Lucas said yes. Yes, it would be. Sheev Palpatine is a senator in the Galactic Senate in episode 1. Immediately, we learn that the Galactic Empire from the originals was not always the status quo. Here we see the galaxy arranged into the Galactic Republic. Thousands of star systems all following under one democracy. This is already a stark contrast to the imperial regime we saw from the originals. Throughout the trilogy, we see the rise in power of Palpatine. He goes from a senator to the Supreme Chancellor, which serves as the single executive power in the Galactic Republic. Even though he is not the main character, his influence over the galaxy, and in turn the plot, is what drives the story onward. Ultimately, the prequels are Anakin Skywalker's story, just as the originals were Luke's. But simultaneously in the background, we get an origin story for the Emperor of the Galactic Empire. This origin story is also presenting one of the main themes of the prequel trilogy: the fall of a democracy into a dictatorship. I praise George Lucas for how he laid out Palpatine's plan. The beauty of how Palpatine is secretly playing both sides and pulling all the strings, yet each side thinks he's their savior, is marvelous. Palpatine, of course, is Darth Sidious, a Sith Lord who only cares about gaining power. Unfortunately for the Jedi Order, he is an absolute mastermind. Just like in the real life of past civilizations, most similarly the ancient Roman Republic, the downfall of democracy is caused by incompetent and out-of-touch leadership who lose their way and become complacent. This mirrors the Jedi Order. The only reason Sidious was able to execute his plan was because the Jedi had become weak. Not physically weak, mind you, they weren't any less powerful. Weak in their leadership. The Galactic Republic had stood for 25,000 years. For perspective on Earth, humans have not even existed for that long, and still have a long way to go to reach that time frame, let alone one of our civilizations lasting that long. So needless to say, the Jedi were confident the Republic would continue. They hadn't dealt with a Sith threat in a very long time. Essentially, they became unobservant and developed a lack of caution and suspicion. The civil war that breaks out at the end of Episode 2 is seen as simply that, a civil war. The Jedi focus only on winning battles from then on, and don't take notice of several signs that a bigger force is at play. The worst instance of this is when Darth Tyrannus, publicly known as Count Dooku, literally tells Obi-Wan Kenobi that a Sith Lord controls the Senate. What does Obi-Wan do with this, to put it mildly, helpful information? He ignores it. He thinks it was a trick and doesn't concern himself with it much after that. Consistently, the Jedi, and specifically the Jedi Council, ignore warning signs and red flags about the inner workings of their government. On the battlefield, they make superb generals and certainly achieve more success than failure. But in bureaucracy, they're all talk with nothing to show for it. This is how Sidious was able to manipulate the system. He exploited the Jedi's lack of awareness and went right under their noses to attain more and more power. This entire journey, through the politics to the council meetings to the Civil War, is an overarching world shift that is detailed, logical, and grounded in reality. If you were to take off the Star Wars paint job and retell the story with humans on Earth, it would still hold up. Well, mostly. You would have to make a few minor changes, but ultimately this is a story of civilization and sociology. I adore it for that. Now we have the individual characters' stories. Anakin Skywalker is perhaps the most complex and tragic character in Star Wars. He starts off with Jesus-based symbolism through his Immaculate Conception. For the time being, I am ignoring other Star Wars material, due to this being a video on only the prequels. Anakin is determined as the chosen one by the Jedi spoken of in an old prophecy. It is for this reason he follows a rather unusual path than other Jedi at this time. He begins his training at an older age than anyone else has for several thousands of years. Because of Jedi teachings that look down upon attachment as a form of weakness, Anakin loses contact with his mother, whom he had grown up with all his life until this point and was very close with. This very much hurts and affects him. Naturally, Anakin is an immensely powerful Jedi. His abilities far exceed most other Jedi on a balanced scale. With complete training, he has the potential to be the single most powerful Jedi of all. This gives him a mindset that, as an apprentice, he is being held back by his master, Obi-Wan Kenobi. Anakin and Obi-Wan are truly friends and have experienced many adventures together, but still, Anakin feels that Obi-Wan is not letting him rise to his true potential. This frustrates Anakin greatly. In Attack of the Clones, Anakin's mother, Shmi Skywalker, ends up being killed by Tusken Raiders on Tatooine. Anakin knew she might be in trouble, but the Jedi prevented him from visiting her. He finally left to save her on his own volition and in violation of the Jedi. Alas, he was too late. In his mind, had it not been for the Jedi's oversight, he would have been able to save his mother. For this, he blames the Jedi for his mother's death. By the time we reach Revenge of the Sith, Anakin is selected to serve on the Jedi Council for his remarkable abilities in the war. He is the youngest Jedi ever to receive such a selection. However, just as uniquely, the Council decides to not grant him the rank of Jedi Master, the rank that all Council members hold. Irrelevant to his selection, Anakin is outraged and offended that he is not promoted to Master. He sees it as blatant disrespect and as a way for the rest of the Council to view him as inferior. To make things worse, the Council's first assignment to Anakin is to spy on Chancellor Palpatine. Throughout this third episode, Anakin and Palpatine have been becoming closer, and Anakin holds genuine respect and admiration for Palpatine. To receive this assignment, he is, once again, offended. He trusts Palpatine and sees no reason to spy on him. In fact, he even starts to side with Palpatine over the Jedi. Finally, to top things off, Anakin is deeply afraid of losing his pregnant wife, Padme, because he keeps having nightmares of her dying in childbirth. He can't talk to anyone about it because his marriage is secret due to the Jedi Code. Palpatine, trying to manipulate Anakin, informs him of special Force abilities that Jedi refuse to teach that could save Padme's life. This is what convinces Anakin to follow Palpatine's teachings. This entire series of events is what drives Anakin to the dark side. He feels constantly beaten down and unheard, even despite his incredible power. It all flows together and makes sense. Anakin's path to the dark side costs him everything, however, and this is where the tragedy comes into play. By becoming Darth Vader, Anakin alienates himself from the rest of the Jedi, and they become his enemy. This does not exclude Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan is forced to turn against the destructive Anakin to try and save the Republic. Since Padme traveled with Obi-Wan to confront Anakin, Anakin thinks he turned her against him. She is heartbroken at what he has become. The former master and apprentice proceed to fight to the death, resulting in Obi-Wan badly maiming Anakin, leaving him without legs, one arm, and nearly burning to death. Padme does end up dying in childbirth, Anakin unable to save her. He gets his infamous dark suit to survive in and becomes a cold, bitter, Jedi-killing machine after being told by Sidious that it was his own anger that killed her. From then on, he does the Emperor's bidding. Anakin lost his master and best friend, his wife, most of his body, and his freedom from joining the dark side. It truly is a tragic tale, a once innocent man falling from grace. These two stories aren't even the end of it. The prequels introduce tons of new worlds, people, cultures, and unique situations to further immerse the Star Wars universe. The additions to world building brought by these films go underappreciated. The prequel trilogy makes the Star Wars universe feel more believable, real, and lived in. The franchise grew to have timelines pieced together and distinguished periods. That galaxy far, far away now has deep history and origins. It's truly something special. To reiterate, yes, it can be hard to watch these movies. I personally have seen each one several times and I still can't get over some of the dialogue choices. There are absolutely many bad elements, including smaller plots that just don't hold up. I understand why people hate these films. As I said, I think episodes 1 and 2 are bad movies. The difference is, I'm glad they still exist because of what they've done for this series. The prequels forever expanded the franchise and brought a whole different style to the classic stories. It revealed so much of what were only mere mentions from the originals. Do I wish they would have been made better? Of course. But either way, I'm content that George Lucas decided to make them. I think they add a lot of value to the franchise as a whole and paved the way for more Star Wars content. Let me know what you think. Do you like or hate the prequels? Are you glad they exist? I hope this video provided a new look at the matter. Thank you so much for watching today, guys. I seriously appreciate every single one of you. Feel free to leave a comment to keep the conversation going, leave a like if you liked what you saw, and subscribe if you're a fan. For more content, follow me both on Twitch and Twitter. To support me, become a patron. It really helps me out and provides me the ability for more quality videos. And the biggest thing, join the community Discord. It's a great place to hang out and discuss media. We even hold recorded debates. Links to everything I mentioned are in the description of this video. I hope your day is spectacular. Until next time, hobos.